So first off, I watched Akikan and its OVA, and I have to say, it wasn't too bad. Nothing about it struck me as necessarily bad. To be honest, I mean, I've talked before about the things that kind of get on my mind, or get on my nerves, and to be honest, I think this anime probably would have been fine if it had just toned down the witch girl. She's literally refers to herself, and everybody refers to her as a witch. If she had been toned down just a little bit, that probably would have actually been not as much of an issue. So it was just a little bit annoying to me in that way. But other than that, it's kind of hard to think about what exactly was wrong with it. I think the problem mostly boils down to a kind of lack of focus. The main character I thought was actually pretty interesting. He's he's a pretty confident individual, which kind of, I guess that's the other thing that could be wrong, is he's a fairly confident individual, and everybody's treating him as a very standard, stereotypical male anime harem lead, which is to say that, people think he's perverted and weak and uninteresting and whatnot, but there's something about him where it's just like, he's actually kind of charismatic. And I guess there's some disconnect. Maybe people felt there. Otherwise, again, I think the issue is mostly along the lines of it maybe being a somewhat unfocused series where it didn't quite. It seemed like it didn't quite know if it really wanted to be a drama harem or an action harem, where it kind of. I mean, it didn't do this. It didn't waver too badly. I would say it was mostly an average anime. It didn't feel completely insulting, but it felt like there was a crescendo in the middle and a crescendo at the very end, which you maybe could expect. I would have actually expected that of a 24 episode series and two 12 or 13 episode seasons, right? So that was kind of strange seeing that in a 12 episode anime. Maybe each of the 6 episodes were shown at different times of the year, but during those climaxes, those important moments, that's when it started saying, we should be a battle anime. But outside of that, I mean, there's maybe little skirmishes, but nothing really on the level of people battling. So I'm wondering if maybe this is sort of like Chaos Head, and that some of its low rating could also just come from the indecisiveness on the part of anime. In the case of Chaos Head, this comes from the first half being wonderfully disorienting and confusing, sort of like paranoia agents. Kind of this feeling of you, the watcher, being crazy, and the other half of Chaos Head being a little making too much sense, in my opinion, which would have made it a pretty average, maybe even a good action-y sort of anime, which I think Akikan maybe wanted to be. But Chaos Head is what it is, and Akikan is what it was. So the thing that probably surprised me the most was there wasn't actually all that much fan service. I was almost expecting it to be a more fan servicey anime. I mean, because, well, let's face it, Midori Days actually was more fan servicey until we got to the Akikan OVA, and that one it went full fan service. But outside of that, it almost sounds like the kind of title that would have been imported here for its almost upskirt shots, if not directly upskirt shots, or cleavage shots, or bouncing breasts, or whatever, and it just didn't seem to be about that. Which I'm not saying it's a point against it, I'm just saying that was surprising, because given its low rating, I almost expected that to be the reason, where people felt like, oh, well, the story wasn't that spectacular because they were mostly trying to keep people watching with two bouncy things on the screen at all times. Or something like that. So, I don't know. Akikan is a bit of a mixed bag. I didn't think it was bad, but I could see why a lot of people probably wouldn't care for it. Let's see. After that, I'm having trouble reading my own handwriting. Oh yeah, of course. Fairy Tail. So, with my friend, I watched Fairy Tail Set 2, Disc 1, and that was actually pretty, it pretty much only covered the story that had just been started at the beginning of the previous DVD, and it was actually pretty entertaining and satisfying. Thing, a kind of stereotypical shonen feel to it, but I kind of feel like it does have some similarities to One Piece in that our characters do kind of feel like they're badasses out there, as opposed to a lot of stuff, well, like in complete contrast to Yu Yu Hakusho, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But like, you know, that seems to be something people are exploring more now. And what was I saying with that? Oh well, anyways, you know, that's pretty good. It continues moving along. It doesn't feel like it's really stalling, and it's entertaining. And I have to admit, there was one part on this DVD that was really, really fucking hilarious. I mean, it caught both of our attentions, me and the friend I was watching it with, at the same time, and we both literally laughed out loud about it. It was so unexpected. So, a lot of points to Fairy Tail for pulling that off, and that was just so completely unexpected. It was so hilarious, and I can't really say it to y'all because I don't want to spoil it to you, but I can't help but wonder if it's too much even talking about it here. Well, I guess it's too late. I've said it, and so overall, I enjoyed it. I ended Fairy Tail Set 2, Disc 1 on a very positive note. Unfortunately, since that was also an experimental night cooking spaghetti for the first time, the noodles aren't a problem. It's just the flavoring of the spaghetti sauce, and something was off about that. What can you do? Well, we weren't watching Fairy Tail during that because my friend was a part of the process, so I didn't put it on and have it on in the background. Unlike what I did Saturday, which was I watched 12 Angry Men with my brother, but that's not an anime. I can't say that was really good though. But since I'm here to analyze anime, the main thing I did on Sunday or Saturday was I watched the Yu Yu Hakusho Season 2 Disc 2 with said brother, because now that I'm finally moved in, settled in, we can start focusing on that again, especially since I was watching the Blu-rays, and when I packed everything up before the move, the Blu-rays got it put into the boxes really fast, and I wanted to stick with the consistency of the Blu-ray versions, because those, I think I've mentioned before, that those actually seem to be superior to at least the DVD releases before the season releases. This would be, I guess I don't remember what they were called, but there were 8 releases of Yu Yu Hakusho on DVD. And maybe Funimation has reprocessed the video, and that video is on both the DVD and the Blu-ray versions. I don't know. But I do know that the Blu-ray version I considered superior quality to that one, and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, as for the content, so one thing I kind of realized is Yu Yu Hakusho is staying more interesting by, I think, keeping the rules more flexible than I usually see in shonen anime. I think, you know, that's just the standard fighting anime where it's like, oh, all these characters have powers, and we have to put them in situations, and blah, 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 blah. And the main important thing in this situation is that, you know, they don't want to make all battles straightforward, so they come up with slight variations on the rules, usually as things going on. And I kind of feel like Yu Yu Hakusho is probably a lot more flexible than a lot of the others. It's like, I don't know, I can't think of a good comparison or a good way to explain, but it's been interesting. And I also found that, the thing it's doing that I was mentioning Fairy Tail doesn't is it's doing something where, you know, our main character needs to get stronger, and it was actually a pretty surprising turn, which I probably wouldn't have predicted. And it's actually been very interesting. It's something I don't want to really describe since I don't like to spoil the series I'm watching for y'all, but needless to say, that's a very interesting twist for Yu Yu Hakusho. I'm interested to see what that does to it, how it changes it, if maybe the series will break out of this tournament format that it's been in, where the past two stories have been about tournaments, essentially. Yeah, it was the past two. Because the thing with the Saint Beast was before the thing, and then this thing. That's a lot of things. I'm trying to. Since I can't remember actual names sometimes, then I'm sorry, but that's just the word I go to. Anyways, I watched that, so whenever I get together with my brother, I'll probably have more chances to watch that. The final thing I watched, I played a lot of Zelda. Okay, so I didn't get as much anime watching as I would have planned. But the final thing I watched was Kimi ni Todoke Volume 1, and that was actually a pretty interesting and pleasant watch. Now, something about it has yet to scream out to me as really, really like, but I definitely like the main character in this one. I'm not quite sure what the timings on all this stuff are, but it almost feels like if you took the ideas from the Wallflower, I can't remember the Japanese name, but if you took that main girl and then you toned down a lot of her shyness and replaced it instead with I'm an unintentional horror character, I guess, I think you'd pull off a lot of the same personality of this character, maybe? There's a similar amount of innocence there, although the current character, again, the other one more embraces the ideas of horror type things, whereas the current character just kind of accepts that that's the reality of how she appears, which kind of creates a whole lot of differences between the two. It's why they're not the same. The Wallflower is definitely much more of a comedy period, whereas Kimi ni Todoke has definitely been a lot more relational. And the thing I really like about it, at least thus far, is that our main character's personality makes it really interesting to throw a lot of the stereotypical shoujo hurdles her way, because she handles them in very unexpected ways. And I'm not talking about this like Great Teacher Onizuka unexpected, where it's like his unexpected were kind of expected, I think. They were, I'd like to say not out of character, but then that would make you think that the ones in Kimi ni Todoke were out of character, when in actuality, that's not quite the case. So I'm having trouble putting my finger on it, but that's kind of what has been interesting about Kimi ni Todoke so far. So I'm very interested to see where it continues with Volume 2. Unfortunately, that it'll be April before that comes out. So I'll have to be patient. The good news is before then I'll get to see some Fate Zero and Madoka Magica. Unless I decide to hold off on watching Madoka Magica until I have all of it. I haven't decided yet. I'm a bit nervous on what I'm going to choose to do there. So, I don't know. We'll find out then and there. Anyways, there we go. That's all the anime I watched. The only other thing I could probably talk about is non-anime stuff, and I'll skip that because I'm sure some of y'all want to hear it, but this is an anime analysis. So, I'll end anime analysis with the analyzing of the anime.